Kia ora and welcome to Mana Talanoa Legends of League. It's Andre Wadeka here. It's my pleasure to be speaking to an Upper Hutt Rugby League City Tigers legend. Played for Upper Hutt, played for Wellington, also played for the Kiwis, made the Kiwi squad in 1989 and played professionally up in the north of England and spent a lot of time at the Leeds club. So it's my pleasure to welcome Mike Kuiti. Kia ora, Mike, welcome.
Kia ora, Andre. Thanks very much for having me.
Awesome to have you here. Look, you've had an extensive career right through playing at the Upper Hutt City Tigers and then professionally overseas. But let's start with where you're from, Mike, and a bit of your family heritage, where you grew up, and your whakapapa.
Okay. Well, I was born and bred in Foxton, just up the line, just out of Levin. So that's a great place to live. Had got 6 brothers and sisters, and we come from. It was just a really nice place to live. You know, it was good family atmosphere there. It was good. Whakapapa, Ngāti Rokawa, and our marae is just out of and Ohau just out of Levin.
Yeah.
So I'm from there.
Awesome. You know, strong area along there, the Ngāti Rokawa people. So you grew up in Foxton, but then made your way to Upper Hutt. What was the thing that brought you to Upper Hutt?
Well, I was at school and they must have like a careers day or something like that, and I think I just went there to get out of the class, to be fair, and just have a bit of a listen. I sort of signed my name up to a, actually I'm not even sure what it was now, it's like a careers day sort of thing. And then by the end of the year, I had got accepted in a Māori Affairs trade trainee course down in Trentham for building. So for about 14 or 15 years of age, I think I was, and come down and we stayed in the old Trentham Army Barracks. And there'd be 40, 45 young Māoris from around the country would come down there, and they also had plastering and building. So yeah, that's how I ended up in Upper Hutt.
Well, so that was to come down and do a building carpentry apprenticeship? Yes,
that's right, yeah.
Look, I remember those trade training programs back in the day, and they did a lot of, that was really good for the Māori community, because a lot of the people in those hostels, I don't know if you might remember, where did they come from all parts of New Zealand, or?
The whole country, as far as I understand. Yeah, we had guys from far up north, Wanganui, bloody Gisborne, all over the place. We actually ended up, because they'd been going for a while, I think probably half of Wainui was built by trade trainees, because that was basically our base. We'd stay at the camp, and then we'd end up going over to Wainui Hill and just doing our apprenticeship, building houses over there.
Yeah, awesome. You know, probably something we need to see more of today, that's getting our young Māori Pacific Island people into trade training. It's really important. So from there, you know, is that where the links came to end up playing league for Upper Hutt? Yeah,
well, what happened there is that there was basically 2 years. You had the first year intakes and the second year, and we actually had our own rugby teams, under 18s and under 19s, playing for Upper Hutt Rugby at the time. But on a Sunday, they'd already had links with the Upper Hutt Tigers, and they would come and pick up the guys on a Sunday, take them to wherever the game was, and we played league on the Sunday. And that's how it really started.
And what was that, playing in an age grade team, or?
Yeah, no, age grade. I think it was. It must have been under 18s, under 19s.
Do you remember who the coach was back then, or some of the players that were around, like that might have followed you in your career, either as players or coaches, or?
Well, I know a lot of the boys that were at Upper Hutt when I was playing there. A lot of them did come through the trade training course. Elvis Williams, for one, he was one that comes through. I had a cousin who was from Foxton, Willie Whakati, and he played for the Tigers as well. So yeah, there was a lot of people come through there, and then ended up playing at League 500 as well.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned Elvis, because you know, back at the Ranwood Club where I was playing, there was a strong link there with the construction industry, with fellas getting up apprenticeships, and people like Lance Pupuki, Simon Foa, who were plasterers, and I think after a weekend game they'd be back on the site, and if we played Upper Hutt, Elvis would be on the other side, and there'd be a good bit of banter afterwards on the construction sites.
That sort of thing happened. Yeah.
So you're playing for the club, so you come through the age grades and then eventually into the Premier team and coming onto the scene. There was a really strong Premier era for Upper Hutt, and it'd be good to talk about that. We know Tyrone had a strong influence then, but let's go back and talk about some of those teams back then. There were the big Hutt Rec games that were legendary in the game. But like for you, who were some of the key players that were around you in your career coming through in Upper Hutt? And it'd be good to talk about them and who some of those characters were. Yeah.
Well, it's a funny story because we'd play the rugby on the Saturday, and then on the Sunday we'd be picked up for the league. And I'll be honest, I wasn't a big fan of it. I played rugby in Boston, just schoolboys and all that. And it was basically I was just following everyone else. On the Sunday they go and play league. And I'll probably consider myself not that good at the time. And I was, just playing along. Once we left the army camp or the trade trainee camp, I moved in with a couple of guys that were playing league. And they said, why don't you come down and play league from now on? So I ended up going, and I was playing senior seconds. I think it was about 1980, 81. And at that stage, I think it was Upper Hutt, the senior first and the Prems were had both made the grand final. And I think they were both playing the Petone teams. I'm pretty sure that was right. We were in the senior second, so I don't even know if we would make the finals or not. But I always remember training, and I think it was Tyrone. He was coaching the senior first at the time. He come to our training and he said to Elvis Williams, who was playing senior seconds, he said, come in with us, you're going to play in the grand final next week. And I just went, yeah. And I went, wow. I thought, Elvis Williams. And then, obviously, they played the grand final, and I'm pretty sure that Upper Hutt won the senior first and the Prems. Yeah. So it's about 80, 81. And I always remember those 2 points, the first point being Elvis getting plucked out of senior seconds and going straight into the grand final.
Yeah.
And he discarded, he replaced a good friend of ours who's no longer with us now, but Bill Runyon. Bill Runyon. Yeah. But he was the hooker, but he got moved to the bench for Elvis. And then at the club rooms that night, that was the first point. The second one was that, having a good time. They'd won the final. And at the time, Kevin Tamati and a guy, Steve Brewster, were the coaches.
Yeah.
Steve Brewster was a big cop. He'd come down from Auckland.
That's right. Yeah.
But he was moving back up to Auckland. And they pulled me aside and they basically said, get your ass into here and play premiers next year. And I sort of looked and was like, what are you talking about? It was nothing that I ever thought about. So those two things sort of, from then on, I just started, maybe just concentrating and started doing the hard work, and everything started to flow from there.
Yeah, look, mate, you mentioned hard work. That seemed to be a hallmark of the Upper Hutt team and era when you were there was high levels of fitness. What were the kind of training routines that you guys were doing? Because, there were a couple of other clubs around there, Renwick, one of them, where they were just miles ahead of everyone else in terms of fitness. And be good to understand kind of what was your training regime back then and what the team were doing, what the sort of things they were doing. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we did a lot of fitness. Ours was running. Basically, you did your weights, but weights wasn't the priority, I suppose. It was sort of the running. And we'd be running all the time. I don't know if you know Rossville Hill, which is part of Upper Hutt, Kingsley Heights. And we'd be doing a lot of training on those hills. And that was one of the main things, just running, and plus the weights. But that was the big thing.
Yeah, you can see how the game's changed a bit now, because I remember back then too, sort of, you're a bit unusual if you did weights back in the day then, but it's almost like now if you don't do weights and you can play, then you're probably unusual. It's the other way around.
Yeah, true. Yeah. I mean, everything's evolved over time.
Yeah.
Priorities have changed for them.
It does look now though like the league players are looking fairly lean though, so there's still good running. And there was a period where everyone just wanted to get big, and I don't think that actually was good for the game. It was it kind of lost some of its agility, but we seem to have got that back. So, mate, that crew that you were in there, you won finals in 86, 87. But talk about the team there and what it's like when you would have been the captain and taken the team to the grand final. What do you go through when you're prepping a team for that big day when it all comes down on the line?
We had a really good group. Well, I mean, I couldn't name all the players, but Elvis Williams was our hooker. So we had Snow White and them in the group. Adrian Shelford came up from Canterbury, and the senior five miler Joe came up later. But we had a really good. There's a lot of players like Monty Henry, James Pike here, all those guys. Sonny Whakadao was there as well. So we had a really good team. I think we had skill and we could tough it out as well. But I mean, every team had it because in the 80s it was really strong.
Strong.
You just said, I always remember Lance, if you speak to Lance Cooper, we always have a bit of a discussion about that when we won the grand final with Mike Nightingale kicking the conversion or a penalty from halfway on the touchline. So it was really good football, tough football, and we had great crowds. Everyone, it's good for the community.
Yeah, well, just thinking about the era, like in and around that team over periods of time for Upper Hutt, the likes of yourself, later on Sidiru, Dave Iwe, Adrian that you mentioned, Mark Woods, and
Morvan Edwards,
Morvan, and even in there, like Taina Tolma, who rest in peace, players like him, really strong. And the other teams that were around, so, Renwick would be a team with Sam Stewart, John Witt just on the edge of his career, Barry Harvey, Steve Kearney, that sort of thing. Wainui with the Lomax, Jacko, Dwayne Brzezinski, Heston. And then even Petone, I was thinking, led Ricky Cowan and James Luluwai playing for them and the Tangida brothers. Yeah. Magical period of rugby league, and you could almost pick a Kiwi team at the Hutt Rec.
Well, that was a good thing. You could still make the Kiwis from playing club football. So that was a real bonus. But I remember, the suburbs, Eastern Suburbs.
Yes,
one of my first games was against Eastern Suburbs, and we had, you had a whole forward pack of Henrys if they really wanted. Yeah. Eddie Albright was stuck in the middle of them, so they were big boys. And Tony, they had like Tus Wharikura was standoff, Mike Hickman's in the centre. Vern Winitana was fullback. So everyone had size as well as skill. It was really good football.
Well, that Petone backline, if you had, Twist, Mike and Vern standing together, and those guys are in the backline. There was
Brandon on next to them.
All that huge speed in the backline. Look, speaking of some particular games, and of course, Upper Hutt won some big finals, and there were some close battles of Wainui back in the day as well. And I remember a particular grand final where I think yourself and Ken Laban was Sinbin at the same time.
Yeah, that's right.
There's a bit there where the game was videoed where you two are talking to each other. I don't know if you got anything that you remember or recall from that time when you're both heading to the Sinbin. And
well, I said to him, should we do a Kevin Tumney, Greg Dowling? And he said, no, I don't want to do that. No, to be frank, I can't remember if we both got Sinbin. I do remember getting Sinbin, but I can't remember what.
Yeah, it might have been got Sinbin, and then on the way Ken was walking over and giving you a bit of chipping, and then you turned around. We would have had our own version of the of the Kiwi, mate. But also speaking of big games, you obviously made the rep team. Howie Tamati came down and started coaching in Wellington, and I don't know, it'd be good to talk about the influence that you think Howie had on Wellington League and the players when he arrived.
Yeah, I'll go back to my first Wellington coach was Ki Tereki.
Ah, right, yes, of course.
So I've got a lot of time for Ki. He was, he was a good guy. I hope he's doing well at the moment, but he was my first coach. And then I think it went to Howie.
Yeah.
Howie was, he was probably a little bit more modern.
Yeah.
He just finished playing, so then he went into the coaching ranks. But he was good for Wellington Rugby League. He just changed. It was just a transition from being a player to now being a coach, and those influences, the way he saw the game should be played, or how it can be played, a little bit. from a player's perspective, then coming into a coach, you had a little bit more insight. Not saying that Kearney didn't, but he was a lot removed from when he played to coaching. It was, how he sort of first was playing and then came into the coaching. No, he was good for Wellington.
Yeah, it's good. I thought also attracted some of the Taranaki players like the Tangita brothers that came down, and obviously people like Jacko and Duano who happened to be from Taranaki. I think there was a good influence there. So he coached the team, and it was a legendary game when Wellington beat Auckland at the Hutt Rec, which you played in, mate. But tell us about that game, because that was like, that's etched in history forever. Us beating Auckland at our home ground.
Yeah, well, I played them a fair amount of times. I've never been able to get close to them, to be fair. Everything just clicked on the night. James Lulu was running the show. Everyone was just doing their job, and it just, I don't know if it was them, but I'd like to say it was more us. We just had everything happening for us, and home game, Hutt Rec on I think it was a night game.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Yeah, so, everyone just worked together, got the result. This time, I'm not sure last time the Wellington team had been.
No, it would have been a long time. I'm just recalling it now. I think it was the game where Kanaka Tarawhiti actually ran the length of the field and scored a try that kind of turned the game. Yeah.
No, we had real mixture of youth and experience in with James and the like. So everything just come together on the night. I think it's happened since.
Yeah, no, that's right. There's still that big gap between us, and it's unfortunately getting bigger, but around the country. But I guess that's an issue for the game to look at a national level. But mate, you made the Kiwis, and then tell us about that. What's that like, putting on the black jersey, representing Upper Hutt, your family? Being a Kiwi. Tell us what your experience was like making that Kiwi squad. Perhaps who was in the team, your first test matches. Yeah.
Well, it's just talking about the grand final with Ken.
Yeah.
It was a Saturday, so we had the training on the Saturday, the day before the grand final, and they'd named the team for the Kiwi tour. So I think there was sort of three from Upper Hutt in contention: myself, Dave, Ian, Morgan, and the Camerons turned up for training that day. So that's when we found out Saturday was that we made the Kiwis. It was just, and that was a time when you could still play club football and make the Kiwis. So you didn't have to go anywhere else. And I know a lot of focus is on going to Australia now, but back then it was about, you could still make the Kiwis at club football. And so I went into that grand final against Wainui. I hadn't really made the Kiwis with Morgan. Unfortunately, David missed out, but he did actually come over later.
Yeah.
Someone pulled out. Oh, it was a great feeling. It was. How do you describe it? I'll tell you, I can still remember the Saturday when we got told.
Yeah.
And I can still remember, a lot of pretty clearly what happened leading up to the first game. Getting decked out and training and playing the first game, and then making the test team. Yeah, so it was. So I don't know how do you explain or how do you. It was just a great feeling, really. Everything had finally, been not a battle, but it'd been a long road. I think there was an opportunity for me in '85 to make the Kiwis with Sammy.
Yep.
But at that time they had a great second rowers, Mark Grant, Hugh McGahn, Owen Wright. So they were class. So there's opportunities beforehand. It was just about basically I just kept working. Just at the end of the day, you got to believe in yourself, and I had enough belief in myself that eventually it may happen, and it did. And it was a great feeling. Really can't describe it.
Did that lead to you getting picked up by clubs over there to play professionally? Like there was the tour to the UK. Is that how did that come about for you playing professionally up in the UK?
Well, what happened there was in '85 actually. Wellington Rugby League found a club from Rochdale.
Right. Yeah.
Rochdale Hornets, and they actually sent me there. They sent me over for the off season, and that was the first year I went. That was another thing that sort of come out of the blue. It's sort of "Oh, do you want to go to England?" And I think it was maybe Bernie Woods in the board at that time. I said, "Yeah, okay then." Didn't really know much about it. And then it sort of started from there. Went and every year after, it ended up going back. Yeah, and then made. I was actually contracted to go to Leeds before the Kiwi team was named to go to England.
Right,
So
I see.
I was going to Leeds anyway, and then the Kiwis come alongside. I went to the Kiwis after once the season once we've done the tour, we come back home. We came back home, and then a couple of weeks later, we went back over and started signing up with Leeds.
And you played for a few clubs in England, you were telling me before we come on. Who were some of those other professional clubs?
The first club was Rochdale in '85, then Swinton, and then I think then it was Leeds, Wakefield, Oldham, and I did a bit of player coaching with Wakefield and Batley.
Yeah. What was the English professional scene like back then? You know, tell us about that. How did you find that? What was the training like? What was the culture? You know, were the other Kiwis around you that were part of the support crew as well?
Well, if you think it's cold here in the winter, you want to be over in England in the winter. That's absolutely freezing. Some days you'd be training on ice, and get that cold. Probably suited me more in England because I was probably more of a ball player. Than a defensive player. So they were a little bit more freer than they are in Australia. But it was good. It was good. It was good football. It was tough football way back then. You know, you had you don't have the jerseys like you have now. They were really heavy cotton ones. So it was tough work in the wet. And it was pretty much through the winter. It's always wet. But it was good football. They trained hard. They had good skill sets, and I mean everyone, and they would probably pride themselves as being tough men.
Were the likes of any of the Wellington Kiwis around on the scene over in England when you were there? Like, was Morven there at the same time, or?
Morven came over later. A couple of years later, he came over. There was a real good sprinkling of Kiwis in England. Obviously, Kevin Cumming was at Wellington at the time. I think Peter O'Party was there. Peter Brown, Dean Lonergan, remember over there, and the Iro brothers were over there, Frano Boddicker and what. So there was a big sprinkling of Kiwis from all parts of New Zealand.
And was that kind of a off-season gig? Then you'd come back and play in Upper Hutt, and then back to the UK. Yeah,
well, back then you had to if you wanted to play for the Kiwis, you had to come and trial. So you had to come back and play a couple of games for the club. So every year I would come home in the off season and play with Upper Hutt and hopefully get picked in the trial and then play the trial, hopefully the Kiwis. And then after the Kiwi thing happened, finished, then we'd head back to England. So we did that every year for about 8 years.
Yeah. But there must be a two-way thing going on there in terms of football, what you take to the north and then what you also bring back to Upper Hutt. Do you find that there's a transition of skills and football culture that helps both sides up in the north and back here in Wellington when you were doing that? Yeah,
I think they saw us as like hard trainers. You know, we always put in effort over in England. It was sort of hard to come back and translate it because we weren't here for that long. It could be only a couple of weeks, 3 weeks.
I see.
And if you made the Kiwis, you'd be out of the club scene here anyway. If you didn't make the Kiwis, then you basically have a couple of weeks off and then head back over. But it was there was a little bit of transition. I think in England they got a good return on their money.
In
terms of effort, training, professionals.
So in terms of that sort of thing, did you have to work at the same time as well, or football was your profession when you were there?
It was a little bit of both. When I first started going over there, we were working as well, but it was sort of basically for the club in some capacity. The last probably 8 years of being over there, I didn't work. I was just basically
professional football.
Training and playing.
Cool.
It was good. It was good.
And so you've come back home, you know, after the English season and finished footy. And mate, you got involved with coaching and development here in Wellington as well.
Yeah, I did. I actually did a little bit of coaching. I coached the Wellington team. Johnny Lomax was involved at the time. He must have been on the Wellington scene at that stage. Did a bit of coaching with the Wellington team then, and then we had a bit of a break for a couple of years and picked up with David Lomax, coached the Wellington team for a year or two, and then Dave moved on, and then myself and Kenny O'Brien.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it was pretty tough, you know. As you know, it's pretty tough back in Wellington because everything had dropped off. You know, players actually playing, but the whole scene had sort of gone a little bit backwards. But you know, we did what we could.
Yeah. No, that's awesome to see you do that, Mike, and come back and put all your experience back into the game. And now away from football, what's life hold for you, Mike? What are you up to?
Oh, well, my wife and I, we've got a windscreen repair business. It's a premium screen. So we've been doing that basically 21 years now.
Yeah.
We're doing that. We've got 3 kids and they're all doing their thing now, adults. So basically just running our own business and trying to enjoy life, play a bit of golf, a bit of diving. That's the 2 things I like enjoying. So yeah, basically that.
Oh, I used to see it was a little while back you were into triathlons and the long distance biking and that sort of thing. You still doing any of that?
No, I don't. Still think about why I did that, but I did do that for a few years. Quite enjoyed it. Did a couple of half Ironmans. It was fun, but I'm just quite happy just playing golf on a Sunday now and just relaxing around home.
Oh, well, you see a few league players around the golf course these days. I know the likes of Lance Pupuke and Elvis. I know they love being out there. And when Johnny Lomax is over here and Wayne Barton and their crew, they're all golfers. And I saw the tournament that Ben Lear did for the Upper Hutt City Tigers, the golf tournament, which looked fantastic. And you know, look, just while we're on there, Ben's done a wonderful job and trying to bring things back in there. Yeah.
You know, that was a really good day. Yeah, Johnny and Barty played. Usually play on a Sunday with Lance and Daryl Turley. Every Sunday. They're 2 burglars, but we have a good time. But Ben has done a great thing for that. He's trying to get it back up and running. He's got my full support. But I think it's just tough at the moment. To get players in.
Yeah, it is tough, and every bit helps. You know, Ben doing what he's doing, you giving him his support on golf day or whatever. I think it all helps. Mate, I just want to thank you for your time for this session with Mana Talanoa Legends of League. Mate, it's been a pleasure talking to you about your coming from Foxton, being at the trade training, coming through to Upper Hutt Rugby League. You know, Wellington. Playing Leeds and the Kiwis. It's been fascinating listening, and thank you for sharing all about your family and your history. So kia ora, and thank you for your time, Mike.
Kia ora, Andre. Thanks very much. Hey, just like to give John Wick my best. Hope he's going well, and hope to see him again soon.
Now, well acknowledged. Thank you, Mike. Kia ora. Thank you.
Okay, right. Thank you.